Coming up, Ike versus ThunderUP.
Warlock'unu yenebileceğimi düşünüyorum.
I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty damn close.
İncelediğim kadarıyla ikimizin de şansı var. Özellikle ban kısmında ve eşleşme kısmında doğru tercih yapanın avantajlı duruma geçeceğini düşünüyorum.
Honestly, I don't know too much about ThunderUP. All I saw was his playoff. I feel like he could have done some turns better. There were things that I definitely would have done differently.
Ike is coming to the Winter Championship.
Old Paladin tercih etmiş. Onu özellikle Priest ve Warlock'unu yenebileceğimi düşünüyorum.
Only strength and raw power can assure total dominance.
The quicker that you play, the less time your opponent has to think. So I get in a groove and I play quickly, while other players might rope every turn.
Benim hayatımda aslında sevdiğim bir işle uğraşıp ondan para kazanmak mutlu eden bir şey olacak.
I'm kind of cocky in some respect. I'm pretty confident in myself, how I play. And I don't really change anything about me, no matter what the circumstances are.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HCT Winter Championship. My name is TG, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. And we're about to jump into the sixth initial match of the day. It's Ike versus ThunderUP, a match that I've been particularly excited about. How about you? That's Admirable.
I'm always pretty excited to watch Ike play. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and he's become a good friend over the years. And why are you excited about it, though? I'm curious why you're excited about it.
Odd Paladin. That's why I'm excited about it.
Okay.
Was revved up for Murloc Paladin earlier on in the day when we saw it from Viper. One of the reasons that I picked him as my prediction. But Ike was one of the few players to make the read the Odd Paladin would be good, and also one of the only players to bring it. I think he is the only player to bring it.
Yes.
But there's another aggressive Paladin, but some Murloc Paladin, as I had mentioned. But Priest banned away from both sides. They are different variations of Priest, with Ike bringing the Cloning Gallery Priest and ThunderUP bringing the Control Priest. But both these players have one thing in common, that their lineup is aggressively themed. I would lump even Warlock into an aggressive strategy because it doesn't fit into anything else. And I can only keep track of 3 archetypes: control, combo, aggro, nothing else.
Well, thankfully for you, we have even fewer than that in the match. Then, kind of taking a look at the list on paper, there are some pitfalls that both players can end up falling into, and one of the ones I look at in particular is Ike's Odd Paladin. There are a number of cards on ThunderUp's side that can really keep this deck at bay, and the one deck that really struggles against it is going to be Odd Rogue. But you take that same principle and you apply it over to Ike's side. He's got Even Warlock. Even Warlock can struggle to Odd Rogue. And then, you take that Even Warlock back over to ThunderUp's side. It can struggle to the opposing Secret Hunter if it's able to contain the board in the right situation. There are so many ways that this can go that so much of it comes down to where the matchups actually land once they're in game.
And that's kind of what both these players said when we interviewed them earlier in the week. They're not overwhelming favorites in any of their matchups. And in fact, some of the matchups that they could face within this group, let alone within this tournament, are not very favored. And I was honestly surprised when, at the beginning of the day, 3 out of the 6 casters picked Ike as their prediction. He's a fantastic player. There's no doubt he's one of the best players out of the 16 here. It's just, will his lineup get there? And it's going to be tough in a field with a lot of different strategies and Odd Paladin falling prey, especially with the level up change that happened a while back. Can they cross the finish line? But we're going to start off with Ike playing the Hunter and ThunderUp with that Even Warlock.
Well, this is definitely one matchup I think that goes in the favor of Ike in terms of just the on-paper percentages. I do want to go back to your point of being surprised that so many players had picked Ike. Something that I've noticed about him ever since the first time I watched him play and the first time I spoke to him is that he's a player who goes against the grain. Even back to when players were playing Shutterwalk Shaman. He was using Shutterwalk Shaman, but he had Fungal Mancers and Giggling Inventors when it was at 5 mana, and his goal wasn't to Shutterwalk and end the game with a chain of infinite Shutterwalks. It was to Shutterwalk and end the game with Corpse Taker buffs and Fungal Mancers and nonsense like that. It's just very much his style is to do things that other players don't think are super appealing, and Odd Paladin is no exception here. A lot of players did not find it appealing, obviously. He's the only one. But I think when Ike chooses a deck like that for a tournament this large, definitely something's up.
He had told us that I really tried hard in testing to make Thrall work, or Morgul, whichever one you'd like.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't find a good way to implement Shaman into a lineup. And you know, the deck or the class struggling right now. Flame Totem got changed for the long-term health of Shaman, so it's struggling. I don't doubt that he'll find a way to make it work in the future, but for this event specifically, he did not. But does have the Odd Paladin, which in itself is going against the grain, even though it's a deck we see on ladder all the time. In tournament play, not so much, because it just gets kind of hard targeted by a lot of things, even unintentionally. And even Warlock is one of those decks that can do that, but it's got the Hunter to start off, and Hunter just is, it feels like no matter which matchup you play, you can see win conditions all over the place.
Yeah, and that's just largely because the cards are just so flexible in Hunter. You know, Dire Maul being a 1-mana 1/3, that's just an efficient card. The fact that it's a beast and you can play it alongside Master's Call and Kill Commands, very efficient card. The fact it gets buffed by Crackling Razor Maw and that it gets charged from Tundra Rhino. You know, you basically can apply that principle to almost the entirety of the deck. The cards are just all very flexible and work together well.
Amazing. ThunderUP, even Ike said he's a player that we don't know too much about. The first Turkish representative that we've had in the current HCT system. And, we had a chance to talk with him. And, it's just kind of a relaxed guy. And a fun story. TJ's fun fact, #1 of the series.
Fun story as opposed to a boring one.
Yeah, ThunderUP, a big NBA fan. And his favorite player is Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant used to be on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's when he made his name.
Yep.
And up is the direction that he prefers to go in life.
I don't recall that part of it.
No, he did. He said almost those words exactly. It was through an interpreter, but that's the gist that I got from it.
That was when Frodan promptly crushed his dreams and told him about a social media thing where Kevin Durant was responding to posts pretending to be someone else.
Yeah, and we also got word that ThunderUP is going to change his name to Golden State.
He said the Warriors are his favorite team, literally just because Kevin Durant's there.
Yeah. Fun fact, complete.
Ike's turn about to be complete here, too. This is about the longest I've ever seen Ike take on a turn.
Yeah, he even said
with the hatchet.
He even said in the interview that we had with him right before this series that you guys saw that tends to play quick. He makes up his mind fast. Likes to keep up the pace.
Kind of surprised by this hatchet attack from Ike, but honestly, it makes a lot of sense here. If ThunderUP doesn't have Shroom Brewer in this spot, he gets to attack through and just start, hitting face. If ThunderUP does have a heal for this little 2/4 taunt, Ike gets to punch through it and have a 4/2 challenging the Shroom Brewer on the other side. That one swing of the hatchet and a couple points of life buys him a lot of leverage on how ThunderUP has to play his own turn.
Smart. Now, a couple options here. The one is just to make some value trades with Tundra Rhino. The problem with that one is his follow-up isn't great unless ThunderUP plays a big play. His other one is trying to squeeze value out of Unleash the Hounds, which I like because it's a card that you're not going to find great uses for later in the game. With a lot of big taunts coming down, if your opponent plays a Hooked Reaver, how is Unleash the Hounds going to be that valuable? So I like squeezing it in.
He also gets the to replace the weapon with a Candle Shot in this spot. And Candle Shot, a very surprisingly strong card versus even Warlock in my time, because so often I feel like I'm like 1 damage off of killing an important minion, or I have a Hunter's Mark and I don't want to use my minion to kill whatever the target was. And just being able to have Candle Shot, not deal you 8 damage when you Hunter's Mark a Mountain Giant, honestly ends up being a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And now Ike with Spring Paw, not really the strongest draw in the deck, but the option of Tundra Rhino or of the Savannah Highmane both looking extremely appealing right now.
Yeah, Tundra Rhino, he's seen 2 Spellstone upgrades effectively with both Vocal Homunculus being played. So Tundra Rhino just kind of pushes 2 and threatens Savannah Highmane, but
forces action from your opponent.
it does, and that's a big thing. And if that's the case, then one of 2 things happens. Either you get to play Savannah Highmane on an empty board and your Tundra Rhinos get taken care of, or he doesn't have the answer, and you get to charge with the Savannah Highmane going to the next turn. But Ike is actually going to
That's smart too.
push 4.
The attack with the weapon here into the Shroom Brewer, it means that Hellfire won't clear up the Misha and leave the Shroom Brewer open to attack through onto the Savannah Highmane. Ike is actually really leveraging these small bits of damage in a very important and unique way in the deck. You know, so often with Hunter, when I first started playing and I found myself just kind of jamming cards on board and attacking my opponent's face and just killing minions when I could kill them straight up. It took me a long time to recognize situations where I could leverage you know, candle shots and hatchet damage and diurnal damage this way. And ThunderUP recognizing that it's super important to just be playing an ultimate amount of defense here and using the Doomsayer effectively as like an attempt to heal for 7.
Yeah.
And I think it's wise. You know, I'm looking at Lich King on 8, and the rest of his hand basically not playing much defense. Really tough matchup for ThunderUP, where if you don't have an early threat to try and, you know, counterattack your opponent, you are pretty much on defense the entirety of the game.
Which is a problem because you're life tapping consistently, and mid-range Hunter has no shortage of burst damage packed into the deck. So you can find yourself in very tough positions where you have to make suboptimal plays in the late game just to keep yourself alive, and that's where Blood River Gul'dan really comes into play. But then once Blood River Gul'dan comes into play, then Ike has the value generation of Deathstalker Rexar once he picks that up to kind of push him through those late stages of the game. So,
oh boy, that is a big pickup on Ike's side with that Timberwolf. Just gonna go ahead and play out the 2-1 here, and ThunderUP is got an answer to this with Defile and Hellfire.
but that's no development.
Yeah, that's the thing is, you know, when you're answering a board, but you're just seeding the development right back over to your opponent, they just regain the initiative. Now, the initiative won't be quite as strong as I imagine as Ike's current board is, but, you know, it could be just as threatening. I'm looking at the pair of Tundra Rhinos in Ike's hand, and each one of those typically demands some sort of action from your opponent.
Yeah, ThunderUP still 2 Spellstones in the deck as well. But this turn just resigned to clearing off this board because he can't take another 6 from this Savannah Highmane, or he falls in range of those things we talked about.
Kill command.
Burst damage.
Why do you whisper it like that? Kill command. Honestly, like, Hunter has some of the scariest burst in the game because it's difficult to really get a read that the fact that the damage is there. You just kind of think about it, and you're like, well, any of those cards in their hand could be kill command. They haven't played them yet. You know, it's cards very often going to be reserved for burst damage effects. And like I said, Tundra Rhino here, pretty much just as scary as that Savannah Highmane if you're in ThunderUP spot.
Yep.
Ooh, with Sunfury Protector drawn, this is actually, that's a really important draw for ThunderUP, and you can see that he immediately recognizes that he wants to Spellbreaker and use that Sunfury Protector he just drew to give his minions taunt. It's not the most efficient on board, but it may be enough to get the job done. And in ThunderUP spot, he absolutely, you know, should not be trying to account for a second Tundra Rhino in this spot. That's a card that's just going to be difficult for him to defeat anyway.
Yeah.
Your magic shall not save.
I don't think we've checked this off the Caster Bingo card yet, but play to win. Don't play to not lose. Bingo.
It seems obvious when you say it. The point is, sometimes you need to be making aggressive plays rather than defensive plays in order to put pressure back onto your opponent.
Yeah.
If they think that you're trying to win, like actually outright end the game at that point, rather than just, you know, do something that's good and kind of stabilize the board, your opponent oftentimes will react differently as a result of it.
Oh, wait. Just looked at my bingo card. I'm missing a huge draw.
That's not one of them yet, so. I'm not quite convinced Sunfury Protector was the best draw in the deck at that point, but it was definitely really good. I came close to saying it, though. I came close to saying it. I typically reserve huge draw for the best draw in the deck. And only if it's important. A lot of parameters.
You don't just throw a huge straw around willy-nilly.
That's crazy talk.
So going to use these spring paws to push a few more damage with the
Quite surprised by
Tundra
this.
Well, he doesn't really have any other good use of his mana. I think that's the big case. There was some argument for Dire Frenzy, but it wouldn't have pushed any damage. It would have just given him a pretty good draw off the top with a 5/8 Tundra Rhino put into his deck, or 3 of them.
Well, that's not the worst thing in the world. It's just I think that Ike is really actively considering kill command with Dire Frenzy. If you shuffle 3 minions into the deck and then your opponent plays a Lich King, suddenly you're looking at that Tundra Rhino just running into a Lich King and dying. Kill command, on the other hand, outright wins the game. So just keeping your chance to draw it as high as possible, I think, is really important. And then also you still have the Tundra Rhino Dire Frenzy potentially next turn to follow up.
Great justification.
Hunter's Mark. Gonna take care of this Lich King, and that looks like that's gonna do it. Kind of funny, I'm just looking at the 2-mana Hunter's Mark and the Skulking Geist in ThunderUp's hand. There's just not really any way to get around that.
Yeah.
At that point, so Ike gonna secure game 1. Pretty straightforward stuff. ThunderUp just on the back foot, doesn't have the Spellstone to recover. Ike's got a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, it was pretty likely that mid-range Hunter from Ike was going to take a win throughout the series. It's just where the power level of the deck lies at the moment.
Yep.
But still a pretty big blow to ThunderUp, because going down 1-0 in a series, regardless of what deck you lost that first game to, can affect your mentality in a big event like this, especially for ThunderUp, who making his first appearance at a championship, his first big tournament appearance outside of the playoffs.
I mean, I think for ThunderUp, this isn't really anything to sweat about at all. I think that Ike's mid-range Hunter is good against your entire lineup. I think that you're not going to necessarily expect it to get a win right off the bat, but I think it's a deck that you don't intend on defeating that many times in a row. And I'm looking at like his Secret Hunter, his Odd Rogue here. Pretty much any way you sliced it, Ike was going to have a good shot with that deck, and the rest of your decks still service quite well versus Ike's Odd Paladin and even Warlock of himself. So for ThunderUp, I think this is just a normal circumstance that you very much expect to happen.
Yeah, well, one thing's for certain, still a lot of Hearthstone left to play in this series. Will ThunderUp be able to make the comeback, or will Ike close it out? Find out right after this.
With the developers.
As far as the most useful hero power, probably still gonna have to go with Lesser Heal. Stub your toe, boom, fixed. Bump your shin on a table, done. Didn't feel like going to the gym that day, done.
The most useful hero power to have in real life would definitely be Tokies. Just rewind. The most useful hero power to have in real life would definitely be
teleportation. It's my favorite superpower. I would want that just by in my little visual UI on the bottom of my glasses right here, just click it and teleport to work or teleport to the store or whatever. It makes parking so much easier, right?
Probably something akin to call a friend, so that I could pull in Mr. Dean Ayala or possibly Mike Donay to finish a turn/game for me, and that they're both far better players than I'll ever hope to be.
Well played!
In this video, we'll share some pro tips that top competitors like Purple use to dominate the late game in Hearthstone. So get ready to take long-term control and start winning more hotly contested late game scenarios. Our first late game pro tip is, know your win condition. What does that even mean? Win condition is a term that many pros use to describe the most common way a deck achieves victory. In the late game, you'll have seen most of your cards, so your deck should be winning its intended way. Some decks have very specific win conditions, like Togwaggle Druid, but most archetypes have a general win condition. Control decks seek to win via fatigue, by using their resources to efficiently deal with their opponent's threats. Aggro decks seek to win by creating damage races, where their more efficiently costed minions can overwhelm the opponent. And mid-range decks win by encouraging repetitive one-for-one trades, allowing their inherently sticky minions and card advantage spells to outpressure the opponent. Recognizing both your opponent's win condition and your own is crucial to dominating the late game. So always try to steer matches towards game states where your deck is strongest. And our second late game pro tip is AVT, always value trade. Value trading means killing an opposing minion with an attack that leaves your minion still alive. This produces card advantage, since your opponent has lost a card on the board, but you haven't. And card advantage is crucial to winning the late game. Why? Because in long Hearthstone games, both players will have used most of their cards. And when you're out of spells and minions, you're out of ways to win. So pick up value trades wherever possible. They help almost every win condition, whether that's by preserving cards on the board to end the game before fatigue against control decks, or by leaving more minions on board to go face for aggro decks. The pros know that navigating the late game is key to winning both on the ladder and in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. So use these late game pro tips and level up your game in preparation for Hearthstone Esports 2019 program. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone Esports.
Well played!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HCT Winter Championship. Once again, I'm TJ, joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. We're about to jump into game number 2 of Ike versus ThunderUP. Currently, Ike leads 1-0. Admirable, what are your thoughts?
I'm disappointed because you told me you were going to whisper when we came back, and then you just completely chickened out.
Yeah, I got to keep you on your toes. You never know what I'm going to do. I'm a loose cannon.
Well, but now I'm not disappointed anymore. But, you know, I think it's pretty standard stuff in game number 1. You know, ThunderUP just going to, I think, likely, you know, I don't know what I'm doing.
Get out.
It's going to brush it off.
Brush it off, brush it off. Warlock Mirror coming up. Both of the even variety.
Yep. And as many people know at this point, if you've ever heard me talk about even Warlock, I am the world's foremost self-proclaimed even Warlock elitist.
I don't even know what that means.
It means that I consider myself an expert on this deck. And I often dislike a lot of what I see with it.
Yeah, I've also heard you many times say that you don't think the deck's in a great spot. You used more serious language than that. More intense language than what I just used. But that's the gist.
Yeah, I definitely don't think the deck is in a fantastic spot. But, you know, during the player interviews, we did get a lot of insight into what they were thinking about as ThunderUP draws Doomsayer just a turn late. Or just a card late, rather. A lot of them just had trouble choosing a fourth deck that they felt fit the lineup. And when you're playing any sort of aggression, you know, oftentimes, whoa, that is a huge draw. Oh my.
Yes!
Well,
Bingo!
I mean, it is. What do you want me to do? I don't control when they happen. Ike, though, with a very strong hand for the matchup. Already has both Spellstones. 2 of the most important cards that aren't Mountain Giants. Has a Mountain Giant of his own, and even has like the Vulgar Homunculus here, providing as a blocker against the first Mountain Giant. That is such an important measure in the matchup, because the way the game ends very quickly is a player gets Mountain Giant and hits the face. Like, that is the disaster scenario for defending even Warlock player.
Yeah, but Ike looking at this Mountain Giant, the downside of it is that, yes, if you did not have the Vulgar Homunculus, you would take 8 damage. But if he plays this Mountain Giant, ThunderUP's Mountain Giant is likely to 2 for 1.
Well, I think that Ike should not be risking the Doomsayer for the sole reason of Spellbreaker. But that Doomsayer could be an important draw as well. You know, very often in the matchup, what ends up happening is big minions crash into each other, and then late game development is the king of the matchup. It's who gets the first giant threat down. Doomsayer helps you control that notion a lot. Like in this spot, I actually would not be surprised to see ThunderUP play his own Doomsayer. I also wouldn't be surprised to see him play his own Twilight Drake.
Yeah, he's got initiative right now where Ike's the one who's kind of forced into the position where he has to make trades. So yes, Doomsayer will allow him to play a minion on an empty board, most likely. I think that keeping that initiative is more important. And might be able to find a spot down the line where Doomsayer could be impactful in a bigger way, where he falls behind on board, and Doomsayer is what allows him to retake it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of debate about, you know, almost this exact turn that happens here. I think Ike is going to have to trade Mountain Giants in this spot. And it is ugly to look at, and I hate to see it. I think the reason to not trade Mountain Giants would be somewhere mixed with both Spellstones. But if you're seeing this Doomsayer get reached for right now, he's going to tap. He's going to attack that Mountain Giant. He's going to hope that he has something good to add to the board. It's not another Doomsayer, so 3-2 is going to have to be good enough. And Spellbreaker drawn for ThunderUP right away. Had Hellfire in hand, so you know you're looking at kind of the same effect, but the difference is this actually develops the board.
And Hellfire is great for pushing through later on in the game. Also, no Spellstone in hand. Hellfire is a great way to activate that.
Yeah, and ThunderUP should to some degree be defending this 4-3. Whether that's going to be a trade or whether it's going to play Sunfury Protector or the Vulgar Homunculus, he has to protect this 4-3 in some capacity. And perhaps you even take that a bit further. I don't mind this either. You know, this is one of my big considerations on the play simply because your opponent's at 18. If you drop them to that 15 mark, Hooked Reavers are they're going to be quite troublesome to push through.
Yeah, but honestly, I guess so, because you'd put him down to below 15, so you wouldn't have to tap, because he had a full hand with the draw on the play. But
and Ike needs to make a consideration here about, you know, what to taunt up and why. Honestly, I think there is some merit to not taunting up the Twilight Drake, and I think there's some merit to not taunting up the Doomsayer as well. And specifically, the reason is the Bone Mare in Ike's hand, giving a minion +4/+4 and taunt. You know, a 0/7 Doomsayer is often never going to get attacked if it's silenced.
Often, I would say never, unless you're playing against Combo Priest.
Yeah, it's quite rare that it ends up happening. You have to have a pretty unique circumstance to justify it.
Yep.
And so in this spot, ThunderUP, you know, we're looking at one turn away from being able to, you know, reasonably play a Doomsayer, I'd say. You want to play Doomsayer heading into 8 mana turns with ThunderUP, or you want to be playing Doomsayers to counteract your opponent's ability to get Mountain Giant down first. So this one's probably just the one.
Yeah, Skulking is such an interesting tech card for this tournament. It gives you an idea of what ThunderUP was expecting from the get-go. Skulking Geist kind of unintentionally got nerfed because of the change to Hunter's Mark. I think is a big one, with Hunter being the most popular class and Hunter's Mark being a popular inclusion. But the main deck that I think that Skulking Geist has value against is the Death Rattle Hunter.
Whoa, that attack is quite weird to me.
Why? Because it activates Hooked Reaver?
Yeah, because Ike's on a 7 mana turn, so Life Tap is a very natural thing to have happen this turn.
I think Mountain Giant changes the play, and I think he can go Hooked Reaver next turn.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely look at Mountain Giant Sunfury Protector to be the play this turn, and then, I mean, Mountain Giant Sunfury... You know, I didn't say it, but that's a huge draw. It's the most important card in the deck, typically. And
it kind of seems like you feel shame now for saying huge draw.
Well, I'm more ashamed that I didn't catch it at this point. I wasn't even thinking about Mountain Giant.
That feeling when the player you're casting has a huge draw, but you don't say huge draw. I can see the pain in your face.
And the 2/3 attack is actually quite interesting as well. I could actually see this going into Skulking Geist if Ike's going to end up taunting up this Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giant. I could also see the Sunfury Protector just blocking with one of the taunt effects. A silence onto the Twilight Drake would be, you know, massively brutal. A silence onto the Mountain Giant here, not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. It is 2 Spellbreakers in ThunderUP's even Warlock deck, so he has played one. Obviously, you can see it on board. But the second one is something that has to be in Ike's mind. Even Warlock is one of those decks where, because they draw so many cards with the 1 mana life tap, oftentimes those fringe play arounds are something that you actually reasonably have to think about.
Kind of a weird turn here from ThunderUP, but I do believe Doomsayer should be hitting the board in some capacity here.
Shields up.
Yeah, the sole reason that I dislike this is because your opponent has 8 mana. They get to develop on their 8-mana turn rather than just having to fight defensively. I think either way, though, with that Spellbreaker draw, which is another huge draw, by the way, Ike is in a fantastic spot to be able to take over this game. I'm going to struggle to see ThunderUP getting back into this one.
Yeah, also making those value trades instead of pushing face to force ThunderUP to activate his own Hooked Reaver.
Ah, I lied. I lied a lot. I didn't see the Hellfire Defile cleared this so as quickly as ThunderUP did. He spotted that instantaneously and actually lands a Doomsayer in about the exact same spot. Oh, Ike draws his own Doomsayer. So now Ike gets to Spellstone back and play his own Doomsayer to strip the play away from ThunderUP. Another huge draw.
ThunderUP, though, does have the advantage of Blood River Gul'dan in hand. Whereas
Ike's going to have the advantage of 11 attack on board next turn.
That's true. But wouldn't it be so juicy if you could just play Blood River Gul'dan on that turn 10 after you picked up that Doomsayer off the top?
I'm thinking that ThunderUP might need to just throw the Hooked Reaver into the pool and hope that it getting rezzed by Blood River Gul'dan is a real play. And you have to think about the life tap too here as well. Is Ike going to be able to play his own stuff that matters? And now that I see Lich King drawn, I absolutely would be throwing this Hooked Reaver down.
Yeah.
And I'm probably throwing down the Plated Beetle as well. The only reason I don't want to do that is because of the Bone Mare in hand.
Also could help activate Second Defile. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But throwing Hooked Reaver in, if you look at your next couple turns, it's Blood River Gul'dan into Lich King. You're going to be floating above that 15th health mark likely because you're going to be using the Blood River Gul'dan hero power.
You don't often get these late games with even Warlock. A lot of times, it ends in a blowout. But when you get them, my goodness, just the draws are so impactful. Ike draws his own Blood River Gul'dan. TJ!
What is it, Admirable?
The whole draw is huge. The entirety of it. Like, all of them. Collectively, it's one big huge with like 7 U's in it. In all caps.
I don't think he's going to play it.
I don't think he's going to play it this turn either, but it's very important.
Yeah. He can play big stuff here, then follow that up with the Blood River Gul'dan, especially if he's able to get Hooked Reaver in the pool.
This is probably too much from ThunderUP to come back from.
Well, he's got some big stuff himself.
Yeah, but
I mean, this is pretty even, and Ike's hitting fatigue first at this stage in the game.
Ike has got lethal next turn through a taunt.
Well, if he plays Blood River Gul'dan, he brings back 2 Vulgar Homunculi.
This is one of the reasons I think that the Plated Beetle should have been thrown out last turn for 3 extra health, and the Hooked Reaver should be down. The Blood River Gul'dan would be so much easier in this spot, as ThunderUP would be at 16 effective health, be going up to 21, and getting 8 attack on his own board. And now instead, you're going up to 18 effective health, and you get 4 attack on your own board.
Oh, he only has the 1. Where'd the second one go? I could have sworn he played it.
It was Ike that played 2.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
No, I don't think so.
How? I don't know. Yeah, well, he had to play 2 because he drew the second Spellstone later. And that was buffed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder.
But now for Ike, it's a matter of invest into Blood River Gul'dan or make the most powerful board possible.
Or tap and try to get a lethal out. Is there one?
No.
I wonder.
Yeah, big board.
Yeah, most powerful board possible.
Yikes.
Push 11. Play Lich King, you die. Play Hooked Reaver, dead.
I think all of these might end in dead.
Shroom dead. Shroom Spellstone. You heal for 10. Go up to 17.
Not technically dead, but dead.
And you there's 15 on the board? No, dead.
Well, you'd be able to take the Bone Mare off the board.
Yeah, so there'd be 15 left on the board, plus Hellfire.
Yeah.
18.
He's
Dead.
pretty dead.
Pointed Beetle, Bone Mare? Question mark? Dead.
Dead? Dead. I like the way ThunderUP played this game, but Ike got so many important mid-game cards. And the only turn I didn't like from ThunderUP was the preparation for Blood Reaver Gul'dan. It was a little less than he needed, and it made his turn just too weak.
Yep. Very well played by Ike, though.
I don't think that ThunderUP gets out of that game if he plays those two cards, but I definitely think he's in a more comfortable position.
Yeah, definitely agreed. But 2-0 now for Ike.
And that to me is one of the very important wins in Ike's lineup, is that one. Again, the Odd Paladin is still here, and it can't get swept, but even if you're at like 30% to win each game across your opponent's side of the board, you're actually still a technical favorite to win the match at that point.
Yeah.
So Ike's got the maximum chance to win with his worst deck, but it is still, I think, his worst deck in the matchup.
I will have to agree with you, Odd Paladin. I think there's a reason why a lot of players chose not to bring it, but Ike put a lot of faith in the deck. Big question is, will he be able to take a win with it and close out this series? Or will ThunderUP be able to complete the first reverse sweep of the tournament? We're going to find out, but for now, we got to go to a break. Don't go anywhere. More huge draws right after this.
Well played!
In this video, I'm going to explain how pro players like Surrender fight through the scourge of competitive gamers everywhere, tilt. So let's get into it. First, we need to define what tilt is. Tilt is gamer slang for a negative mental state caused by a previous loss. For example, a pro might go on tilt when their opponent makes them overdraw the one key combo card their deck needs to win. By getting tilted, a pro allows this negativity and frustration to carry into their next game. The pro isn't fully focused on the new match, and as a result, plays suboptimally or sloppily. It's easy to talk about tilt as something to avoid, but we're all human and have emotions. So, how do the pros keep their feelings in check to stay focused on winning, no matter what? The first pro tip to beating tilt is to start fighting it before the play even begins. Most pros remind themselves before matches, or even tournaments, that unfortunate events can and will happen. But this doesn't diminish the skill required to play high-level Hearthstone. Instead, it provides yet another opportunity to outplay opponents. By recognizing that everyone can get tilted, but you can deal with it better than others, you transform this negative emotion into an opportunity for a competitive edge. The second pro tip to fighting tilt is to stay focused on the big picture. A single Hearthstone game is not a Hearthstone match. Most tournaments are best of 3 or more, and many formats, like Swiss and Double Elimination, allow you to lose entire matches and still make the top 8. Pro-level Hearthstone doesn't require you to win every game, just most of them. Remembering this fact puts losses into context and allows you to move past negative outcomes more quickly. The final pro tip to beating tilt is to remember that Hearthstone is more than winning and losing. It's a community of talented and passionate individuals who all share the love for a great game. If you respect not just your own talent, but your opponent's, the sting of losing can disappear, and Hearthstone as a whole will be a better place. So stay focused and positive using these pro tips to beat tilt, and soon, you might be joining other tilt-fighting Hearthstone pros next year at one of Hearthstone Esports' $250,000 tournaments. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone Esports.
Well played! The Hearthstone Championship Tour continues. It's go time! This is the HCT Winter Championship!
Welcome back, everybody, to the HCT Winter Championship. A little more than halfway through the day today. Currently on match number 6 out of the 8 initial matches across the 4 groups on day 1 of 4. I currently leads 2-0 in the series. Got Odd Paladin left to find a win with. Could be tough going up against ThunderUP's lineup, but 3 chances is a lot.
Now, I've been setting it up as though this is Ike's worst deck, but there is a caveat to it. It's that ThunderUP has Odd Rogue, which I think is pretty decent against what Ike's brought, but not so much against Odd Paladin.
Your soul shall
It's, in
be
fact,
mine.
I would call it one of the worst decks against Odd Paladin.
Yeah, and that,
in the game.
And that point is very relevant because this next matchup is Odd Paladin versus Even Warlock.
Yeah, and you may notice it looked to me like Ike kept Fungalmancer in his opening hand. When this deck lost level up, it needed a way to try and get damage in a very different way. And it actually came in the form of Frostwolf Warlord. A lot of those got added in the slot where level up was because you just needed a payoff to having multiple minions on board. Fungalmancer very much fills that role in just a better way because the damage is so immediate. But I think that the 5-cost buffs in matchups like Even Warlock, where your opponent's going to be a bit slower to actually pressure you, are super important to be keeping if you have a 1-drop available to you. And they're a bit more important on the coin as well because you get the turn 4 spike. But that's a card that is just going to be absolutely one of the ways that Ike wins the matchup. The second way he's going to be able to win the matchup is ThunderUP just never has board clear.
Yeah. Defile, Hellfire, and those board clears are very important to the point where every time you use one, you have to think to yourself, is this 100% necessary? Especially if you have limited amount in your hand. So you only have a Hellfire and Defile. You have to be very conservative with those resources because now this could be a really tough point to understand, but once you use them, they're gone.
Whoa.
Yeah. Something that I think a lot of players don't realize when playing Hearthstone. But I think it's an important facet of the game.
Let me think.
There's not a single person who doesn't understand that when you use a consumable thing, it is then gone.
I had to throw it out there.
Reporting for duty.
Vulgar Monkus is a great way to stave off that early damage.
That's an important one, too.
Yeah. And this is one of the problems with Ike keeping the Fulgurmancer because, yes, you're always going to have minion generation. Fulgurmancer is very often going to have targets that you can use the Fulgurmancer on going into turn 5.
Yeah, I was going to think maybe you forgot that the button makes 2 minions a turn.
Ah, yes.
That's the entire point of playing the deck.
Once you use the button, it's not gone. It keeps coming back every turn.
Yeah, now the problem is that
renewable energy. That
ThunderUP has had 2 minions to fight early on and has Twilight Drake in this spot. That does spell trouble for Ike, where I don't necessarily think he has the liberty of playing Fungalmancer in this spot. And that looks like the Taunt Maul.
Yep. If
I recall that picture correctly, which I do because that's the only one I ever see.
Sometimes it's good.
Yeah, that's never. That sometime is always when it doesn't.
Okay. That sentence just got me all jumbled up.
Frostwolf Warlord, no Spellbreaker. And that means a payoff for Ike. That's a scary minion. And so ThunderUP has to take this quite ugly looking route of just trade the Twilight Drake and Hellfire and then hope that Dread Infernal is going to be enough to keep Ike at bay for a number of turns, which it's looking like it might be able to.
Yeah, and this is a crucial turn for Ike, trying to find a balance and, you know, what could ThunderUP have? He knows that there's a copy of Dread Infernal in the deck. Does he play into it, thinking it's a one of? It's likely that it doesn't have it.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting turn to me from Ike where I didn't expect that. Okay, so I'm going to... wow, this is really interesting to me.
I think this is smart. It's playing around Dread Infernal. To the max. Yeah. Oftentimes, you know, when you're trying to coach someone who's playing Odd Paladin for the first time, you say you just got to press the button every turn. Press it. It's free minions. It's free value. We have to think, what gives me the strongest board position against my opponent's strongest play? And this is that. At this point, he figures I can unleash the board ripper, because if my opponent plays Doomsayer, one, I have an answer to it already with this board. And two, by the time my opponent were able to play a Doomsayer later in the game, either I already won or already lost.
Makes sense. So question 2 for Ike. So how do you play around all the other stuff? And that other stuff is, you know, namely Hooked Reaver at this point.
I think we're going in.
Yep. I told you there's 2 things that you get with Ike. Number 1, he's going to ask himself, do I need to kill that minion so it's dead? If no, then hit face so they have less life. And honestly, on turn 5, I shouldn't be surprised when I think about his other thing, is you want to play your minion so that it's in play.
And there's a not often talked about number 4, player resources so they're gone.
I'm pretty sure you made that one up.
No, he told to me right before we went on.
Sudden Fury Protector for ThunderUP is going to do a heap of work here.
Yeah, but a lot of damage staring back. If he doesn't clear multiple minions off this board, which he can't, he could reduce somewhat Spellbreaker and the Argent Squire. But Raid Leader is going to be a good amount of value and doesn't have a lot of health to work with. Got a couple of really impactful turns coming up. If he can land a Bone Mare, fantastic. If he can stave off enough to get to Blood River Gul'dan, fantastic.
Well, the Hooked Reaver also a pretty big one.
Yep.
Just a lot of time that Ike buys here. That damage should absolutely be shipped face.
Well, it reduces the damage of Raid Leader, and I don't know the breakpoints. At that point, I think you have to calculate the breakpoints. If that one extra attack from Raid Leader onto the Void Ripper would allow Ike to push through something that he otherwise wouldn't be able to push through, then the trade is good.
So maximum damage would be like Raid Leader, Blessing a Might. We'll call that a reasonable amount of burst damage.
Yeah.
If that were to take place,
it would just be 1 extra damage, right? Because the Blessing of Might wouldn't matter because it would have a target anyway. So it's only about breakpoints.
Yeah, it does. I don't think it matters. I'm trying to find a spot where it matters.
Well, maybe ThunderUP just didn't have enough time to calculate whether or not the breakpoint was there, and the safe play for him is to trade.
Well, that damage should have been shipped face.
Okay.
You have to counter attack as well. That's the thing in the matchup.
And breakpoint would not have mattered because he had clean trade, so it would have been just 1 overkill on whichever one of these minions it was.
Yeah,
so
the difference is that
damage should have been shipped face.
Yeah, Ike would be at 15 instead. You know,
Yeah.
a Bone Mare suddenly looks like an extremely scary play in that spot.
Yes.
So your magic shall not
Spellbreaker, take the trade. Hooked. Still a bit off. Can put him to 2, but have no way whatsoever to close out the game. We talked about Ike's deck list a little bit, but nothing fancy like a Witch's Cauldron in the deck. Opted to go with the Void Ripper instead, which I think was a smart choice. If you look at all the lineups, good amount of Doomsayers, and it also has just a good amount of utility. You know, in a vacuum, not knowing everybody else's deck list, I think a lot of players may have been expecting a little bit of Wall Priest, which Void Ripper has added utility in to be able to get through those big high health taunts. Doomsayers and even Warlock.
Also just flips around your Corridor Creepers and your Stonehills sometimes.
Yeah, and can allow you to push some additional damage. Even just Firefly on turn 2, flip them. They're 2/1s. You push 2 extra damage.
It's just
potentially more.
It's just a very unique effect.
It is, but so is Witch's Cauldron.
Yeah, well, but Witch's Cauldron kind of, you know, it's not the greatest. You get Shaman cards. I don't know if you heard, there were 0 Shamans in this tournament.
I love Shaman cards.
I could have set him to 2.
I think this is honestly his best play. The other thing he would have done would be to make a small board and buff it with Fungomancer, but he's hoping that ThunderUP has no heal, has no taunt, and that he's going to draw a weapon off the top. That's his game plan right now.
Yeah, and that's going to fail. Well, of course, we can see ThunderUP's hand, but I do agree that this was Ike's strongest method to win the game. He's not going to get there, as I don't think there's actually any other card in the deck that delivers the damage outside of Weapon. And the Weapon's going to be shut down this turn. It's the only charge minion in the deck, so ThunderUP is free to play this pretty much how he needs to. Taunt and heal are pretty effectively the same thing. The difference is that the taunt shuts down the weapon damage as well and just puts more stats on board.
Yep.
Perhaps we spoke too soon.
Well,
oh, it's not Sunkeeper Tarim. It was a Moshog Enforcer.
doesn't even gain the benefit. I think that's lethal. Hellfire, well, you're
at 2.
Oh, you can't Hellfire. That's right. It's not lethal. He can make a tie here. That's the worst play.
Dread Infernal, I think, is actually the strongest play.
Yeah, he's got it.
You're totally safe with this.
It would be lethal if he was at higher than 4, because he could trade over the Spellbreaker, Hellfire, Dread Infernal. Unfortunately, does not have the health to work with. Thank you for putting that out for me, Admiral.
I was tempted to let you just sound like a bumbling Raven.
You should have.
But Raven's been doing good lately. I can't really, put him down to your level here, I guess.
He's making it harder to make fun of him.
ThunderUP puts a point on the board in a tight-looking game, which ThunderUP is pretty much expected to be a much bigger favorite. If he had drawn Doomsayer as his early board clear, I think Ike actually might have run away with this game because of the Void Ripper.
Yeah.
So, ThunderUP dodges the one very dangerous way that his deck attempts to reestablish board position, and with an early Vulgar Homunculus, early Plated Beetle able to stabilize.
Still a rough rest of the match for ThunderUP because of that pivotal matchup that we've been talking about, which is the Odd Rogue. That's the deck that he has that's the weakest against that Odd Paladin. So, an uphill battle any which way you slice it, even when 2 favorables against Odd Paladin. Just because sometimes Odd Paladin can sneak through wins. I mean, that's, kind of the iconic feature of a good rank play deck is just that against every matchup, you have game. Yeah, and that's why mid-range Hunter, that's why Odd Paladin are so popular in ladder.
A lot of players don't like to bring Odd Paladin with this fear that, it's a deck that can get swept in this tournament. And, yeah, every deck's a deck that can get swept. Every deck has a chance to lose. You feel oftentimes that you're out of control of the situation when you're losing certain matchups with Odd Paladin, and I just don't think that's that big a deal.
Yeah.
If it's a strong deck, it's a strong deck.
Yeah, but we'll see how strong of a deck it is. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, potentially the conclusion of this series between Ike and ThunderUP. Don't go anywhere.
With the casters!
A hero that would win in a battle royale, it's got to be Rexar, right? He's got the perfect aim.
I'm gonna have to go for Rexar.
He's got the steady shot.
He's just the best. He has all of the animal companions as extra friends, which I don't know if would count as cheating or not, but would get the job done.
What heroes would win in a battle royale? Well, Garrosh just does not seem to die ever in Warcraft lore, so he's my #1 pick.
Garrosh, I'm a fan of just going for the guy with the biggest muscles and the biggest hammers.
It's the brute force and gung-ho tactics are not how you win. The best way to consistently take that W is to play smart, perhaps hide every now and again when necessary, and only pick your smart fights. So I think the rogue style kind of plays towards that the best. So I'm gonna go with Valera.
I think it might be Morgul the Oracle. He's kind of unassuming, so no one try and go for him first. He can control the elements, so I think that he could make himself a good hidey hole until he's one of the last people left, and then take his opponents by surprise.
Wouldn't it be cool if Hearthstone was a battle royale? And there was this giant map, Hearthstone land, we'll call it. Circular map, a lot of cool Hearthstone stuff, basically all taverns. And you drop onto the map, as just yourself, random guy. And on the map is a bunch of cards. And you pick up cards and you build a deck. And then every person you meet in Hearthstone land, you battle with your deck. And the last person standing wins.
Tickets sold out days ago. Oh, that's too bad. If only there was someone around with tickets to sell, I'm sure they would be willing to make a deal. For gold. At triple the face value.
I will pay for that.
For justice.
Raffle tickets! Get your raffle tickets! Everyone gets a raffle ticket. Keep it ready for halftime. We have the greatest prize anyone's ever seen.
Oh.
Get your raffle!
For justice. For justice. For justice. For justice.
Wow.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Winter Championship of the HCT variety. My name is TJ, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. Once again, and this series is starting to heat up a little bit with ThunderUP putting a point on the board, getting that win with Warlock, trying to sweep the Odd Paladin, which is a difficult task.
Yeah, and taking a look at his Secret Hunter deck, which is kind of in my head what I imagine he would end up going with here. It's the better of the two. He went with his best one, in my opinion, in the last game. There are some really key things to look at in this one, which, number one, Secret Hunter, you know, ever since Springpaw got introduced, you had a little bit extra way to start checking board positions and really make something of it. But there is no Unleash the Hound in the deck. And that is a really big talking point, because that's, to me, one of the premier tools that helps fight against Odd Paladin is having access to Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah. I will agree with you. And you kind of think, well, you're not sacrificing too much by going with the Secret Package. And honestly, the Secret Package does pretty well against aggressive decks because secrets are hard to navigate around. Your opponent has to really think through them. They provide a lot of disruption. And then you have the counter attack with, I play my Spellstone and push a lot of damage the following turn. So I do like this matchup specifically against Odd Paladin. But I think it's about even when you consider against Midrange Hunter because of the Unleash the Hounds. It's just how the decks are built, right? But I think he's still in a good spot.
I'm not interested in using Animal Companion this turn. I don't blame him.
Candle Shot's really that important early game engine, right?
And it's so much better when you're going second than when you're going first in the matchup. Just being able to respond instantaneously is such a big deal. You know, I can compare it to like when you're going first as the hunter, you want Dire Maul. When you're going second, you want Candle Shot. Now, whenever I'm playing, I want both of them versus Odd Paladin. But if I had to pick which one I wanted, that would be the order of priority. Dire Maul going first, Candle Shot going second. Of course, I'm probably going to get crucified by some of my chats for this, you know, my practice groups and stuff. They're going to be like, no, you pretty much always want Dire Maul.
Yeah, Dire Maul's pretty darn good. Ike here having to make a decision between just playing hero power and basically losing all control of the board, but banking that Corridor Creeper to be able to play for a big swing turn later, or just playing it out now.
I'm quite surprised by the Corridor Creeper. It is more stats in play, and that's, you know, again, just part of the Ike effect. If it's a bigger thing, he's very likely to do it.
To my side.
Misha, real good here.
This does allow you to Void Ripper the Corridor Creeper and hit the button next turn. Yeah, it's actually, I think it is better when I think about it. I didn't account for just how Misha ended up lining up. You know, my head was so focused on having Blessing of Might be one of my answers to Animal Companion via one of my tokens. And I was like, wow, maybe you just don't get that turn. But now you kind of get it, and you get used to the Void Ripper alongside of it. But he's still going to use the Void Ripper and the Blessing of Might, because that's more stuff in play.
Yeah, it also flips this Corridor Creeper to a 1/5, which keeps it around on board to try and fight. Also makes it more likely that Ike has 2 minions on board next turn to be able to play the Fungomancer.
This is such an interesting game to me, because I would not have done this line of play at all. And honestly, I'd venture to say most players would not have done this.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But the one thing about Secret Hunter is that it has a tiny bit more inevitability attached to it. Spellstone is an instant large board. Zul'jin is also pretty much an instant large board, plus a lot of disruption because you get to replay your secrets that you've played this game, and removal spells if you've played those. So compare that to Mid-Range Hunter, which, yes, it has Deathstalker Rexar. Secret Hunter still has Deathstalker Rexar.
A little surprised by the Master's Call. I think I would have liked to see the Crackling Razor Maw and Kill Command try to answer this board state. But if you're able to get Crackling Razor Maw to even answer one of these, I think it works out in your benefit.
Yeah, would agree. Well, ThunderUP does have to worry more about falling behind on board.
Yes, and I actually think that the fact that Ike has drawn Vine Cleaver gives a very clear path for Ike on what he wants to do now, where he gets to trade off the Crackling Razor Maw, he's got Fungomancer for next turn, and Vine Cleaver to follow that up. I actually think that this just went from a pretty good spot for ThunderUP to a really bad spot for ThunderUP.
Yeah, one of the things that Mid-Range Hunter does have going for it is that it does have emergency tools against Odd Paladin, where at some point you could play Unleash the Hounds with Timberwolf or Spring Paw with Timberwolf to be able to chew through a board that's otherwise tough. Whereas Secret Hunter, they're much more setup oriented. They don't have Timberwolf. They don't have Unleash the Hounds. So once you fall behind on board, that's pretty much it. You have to play reactive with a deck that's not as reactive, and that can be a problem. So I would have also liked to play more for the board and more tempo oriented than resource generation oriented like he did with the Master's Call. It does, however, kind of increase his average draw for secrets and removal.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need an average draw in that spot, though.
You need control of the board, I agree.
Yeah, you need like stranglehold on it, because that's how you lose the game, is your opponent gets to land a Vine Cleaver while they're ahead. And not only that, Ike's also got Leroy. Like Ike has drawn the damage this game, and now it's up to ThunderUP to be able to answer the damage. And I can see it happening, but I'm not convinced just yet. Try to hide the Crackling, the Scavenging Hyena, hide it with the Crackling Razor Maw, perhaps give it extra health.
Divine Shield also pretty reasonable. He's at a good life total to the point where he doesn't have to worry about this damage shipped to the face.
This is where I think it gets dangerous, though, is Ike has a lot of different directions to go with this one. My instinct is just, crack it with the Vine Cleaver and keep moving forward. But I'm looking at Stonehill, I'm looking at Righteous Protector. There's a lot of opportunity to just protect things.
Yeah, and both Spring Paws are gone. Has used both of those. So there's no way to instantly generate Beast to trade in to buff up the Scavenging Hyena.
Yeah, I mean, right now you're looking at Deathstalker Rexar, potentially being the most impactful card to the game right now.
Yeah, I would also say maybe Subject 9.
Yeah.
Just because it thins the deck of the secrets to increase your average draw, and it also beefs up the Spellstone that's in your hand. So
that tells me Ike is very focused on damage at this point. And Dread Corsair, not too shabby with a Vine Cleaver in hand.
Yeah, very good with a Vine Cleaver in hand. Huge amounts of tempo.
Mike says, have a buff Beast. You got 3 taunts to go through.
I feel like I'm feeding a fed horse here right now, but are just seeing so many reasons why players choose the mid-range version of Hunter over Secret Flare. Going with a hybrid deck like this just makes your synergies feel so off. Having a dead card in the far left of ThunderUp's hand has been so detrimental, and he has to make weak turns like this one, where he's barely making any development, not pushing any damage, and giving Ike effectively full initiative, which it feels like he's had all game.
Blood and plunder.
And now the moment of truth. That seems responsible.
I don't know why that's a very responsible decision.
Well, I was looking at it, I was like, hey, if you just go full YOLO here, your opponent is taking a lot of damage in that spot, but it just seems a bit irresponsible. It's an 8/5 Scavenging Hyena. Like, just get rid of it.
Just call it a day. Don't get too fancy.
I wonder.
Did cost him some damage, though.
Yeah.
I think that one of the big factors for it was that the Dread Corsair is immediately challenging the Scavenging Hyena, so there's not another value trade on board for ThunderUP.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, TJ.
Would you like to count with me?
No.
Okay, I'll do it myself. Should be about 14 damage on board.
Excellent work.
Oh, nope, just kidding.
Job's done.
Yeah, he made the trade into the Righteous Protector. So now there's 16 damage on board. Add a Bless Him All to that.
That's the +1 attack one.
That's 21 damage. Now I bet you wish you were counting with me. That got exciting. 4 from the Vine Cleaver, 6 on board, that's 10. Leroy, 16. Re-equip the Blessed Maul with 5 minions on board that can attack this turn, 21.
Is that too irresponsible, though? You have to think about how the draws from ThunderUp's deck are going to affect things. You know, ThunderUp right now has been scraping to try and stay alive at this point. And there are a lot of cards left in the deck that do not help him stay alive. But I think if Ike ignores too much of this board, the game can slip away.
Must move quickly.
But if you let the Hunter live too long, things can also start slipping away. A Deathstalker Rexar drawn could be a big deal. Then ThunderUp starts banking on those zombies and has the potential to start blowing out the game with big taunts, with lifesteal minions, with rush. But Ike basically just going to set up the biggest board possible after trading into some of the dangerous minions and say, deal with this.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I think I don't know.
You think what? This works.
This does work, yeah. This works. I agree.
This is great. That was a huge draw from ThunderUp.
Yeah. Also, Subject Knight going into the Zul'jin turn, he's going to have a Spellstone. He's going to have multiple secrets that were played. He's played an Animal Companion. He's played a Kill Command. He's played a Master's Call.
The question for me now is, can Ike actually contain the board position and get back to a winning spot?
Yeah.
He's not, you know, going face is pretty out of the question in this spot unless he draws exactly Purifier's Maul. Because that would give the minions Divine Shield.
Yeah.
But even in that spot, the Zul'jin will reload the Explosive Trap. And that's not a very good draw right now.
Oh, man. Would this situation have been different if I just shipped everything upstairs last turn? Sometimes it's okay to do the irresponsible thing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there is a certain recklessness to be had with Hearthstone play and it paying off. But I think Ike is, I think he just got outdone in this game. I don't necessarily think he's getting there. And the Zul'jin is why.
Divine Favor maybe could change things, but I don't think so because ThunderUp's going to make a pretty big board on this turn with the Zul'jin, plus have the backup of Explosive plus Wandering Monster played on the board.
Now, Ike does have the board, at least, checked. the board from ThunderUP, you know, it's going to take a big hit here.
But ThunderUp's also going to draw more cards from his deck because he's played a Master's Call this game.
That's the two you know about. Takes out a minion.
Can also play a Dire Mole with the extra corn. Oh, he only had one beast left. It's Secret Hunter. He's drawing all his beasts.
Yeah, this is still a winnable game for Ike, but he's going to need some draws. TJ frantically looking at the list. He's like, how could that be possible?
Job's done.
Just starting to think when he played a ThunderUP. I don't know.
I don't really remember that either, actually.
I wonder.
Also, if Warlord gets picked up as well. That honestly might be the best draw on the deck. Divine Favor into that might have been a little bit better. It's pretty good either way you slice it.
Yeah. I think still got a little bit of game left. Like I said, Divine Favor could change things. Stonehill Defender could be a big value generation.
No Hunter's Mark in the deck. Rexar's pretty good.
It also lets him isolate the Frostwolf Warlord for this freezing trap.
Yeah, that is also a huge draw.
Yeah. Now you give up the Zul'jin hero power, but
oh no.
Yeah.
Not that. That's the reason I play Zul'jin. So that way I can hit anything with my hero power, not just them. For you old school players out there, remember Steam Weedle Sniper and how he never played it?
Now you can have it all the time. I mean, it was pretty likely at this point that ThunderUP would pick up Deathstalker Rex. There's only 6 cards left in the deck. Subject 9 plus playing 2 Master's Call, getting all those secrets, all those beasts out of the deck.
That's a lifesteal, life drinker, I believe, as well.
Yep.
And
Gains
that's
double lifesteal because of the effect plus the damage. So you get 6 immediately, plus if it attacks,
wow,
you get a bunch more.
Check for snipe. You know it's explosive, but you know it's freezing as well. And you know there's a wandering. You just gotta hope to get it done. But it's not enough. ThunderUP. My goodness, this was such a close-looking game. And just fights tooth and claw. And lets Zul'jin do the heavy lifting at the end of it. Oh, that's right. The freezing trap doesn't even activate because the Leroy died of the explosive trap.
Died of the explosive trap, that's right. ThunderUP ties it up 2-2, which means we're going to a game number 5. The second of the day. Start off with 3 3-0s. Kind of glad we're getting some drama here towards the end of the day.
That's what I like.
Drama.
Drama.
Yeah. It all comes down to that matchup that we've been alluding to basically for the last hour and a half. Odd Rogue versus Odd Paladin. 2 decks that, boy, in their heyday, they were a force to be reckoned with. Now, still really good. Just not quite at the power level that they were before the Cold Blood change and before the level up change.
Yeah, apparently if you just double certain classes' hero powers, they get pretty good.
Yeah. Apparently if you make them cheaper, they also get pretty good.
Yeah, it's like a form of doubling.
That's true. You double it backwards.
With honor.
Yeah, half.
That's what that means. All right, let's just get right into it.
Yes, indeed.
Screw bricks. Let's play some Hearthstone.
Wow, both hands looking quite good. ThunderUP has the luxury of Dire Mole, and Ike has the luxury of Divine Shield minions. Now, ThunderUP's, the pickups from the Mulligan, bit of yikes there, but
not the best. And we were talking about this during one of the breaks. ThunderUP's Odd Rogue list is quite interesting and quite heavy. He's got a Plague Scientist in the deck to try and better get through big taunt minions and matchups that's necessary, and creates Chemist to kind of fill the hole that Cold Blood being 2 mana left.
Yeah.
And those cards are just not going to really have much benefit in this matchup outside of fringe scenarios. He does have a pair of Tar Creepers, which I think are kind of necessary to get through this early game, but the 2 damage dagger is effectively useless. You may as well just be a normal non-Odd Rogue in this matchup, because oftentimes you're just overkilling for 1 every time.
Yeah, the matchup is very much about taking the board and then taking advantage of it. ThunderUp is answering 1 extra thing at a time with the hero power, and Ike's making 2 extra things at a time with his hero power. So you can figure out the math quite easily on that one. You know, they kind of touch on the tech cards from ThunderUp. I don't quite understand them, and I think that they're, you know, pretty weak choices given all the options available. And Ike, as he draws Divine Favor, I think he's eyeing how can I take advantage of this Divine Favor, but that will give up board if you do that. So I am curious about this play from Ike. You know, I have often criticized when players make this type of play and wonder to myself, why didn't you just hit the button? And then Divine Favor is the exact reason why, but you cede a lot of tempo to your opponent by doing it this way.
Yeah, but you also gain a lot more resources. Not picking up the best cards, though. Really heavy stuff. And
gets him out of the way, though.
It does. That's true.
Oh, SI7 agent gets drawn for ThunderUp, and now you're looking at a circumstance where ThunderUp, you know, can potentially just buy value back on the other side. I don't know if this is the turn necessarily to do it. I would like to see a dagger up.
He's got 3 5-drops in hand.
Yeah, I wanted to see a dagger up that turn.
Not a turn 4 play.
I really wanted to see a dagger up that turn. Argent Squire, attack a minion, dagger up.
He's really valuing immediate board presence.
Well,
over thinking for the long term and having a play in.
He still can get paid off from this, though. You know, we got an extra minion in play, and now he can just dagger up next turn with no play left to be had, and then use the Snapdraw Shellfighter to really reinforce that board position.
Now, Fledgling drawn, which is a playable card, and he can protect it on board by making 2 trades, but doesn't get the dagger up.
I want the dagger. Dagger's 2 mana, kill 2 things over 2 turns.
So many options.
Vicious Fledgling is 3 mana, don't dagger up.
Yeah, you know, if I could not use that Divine Favor, he would be drawing very slow right now. He just would have seen Champion's Ball. He would be seeing Baku the turn after that, and then seeing Blessing of Mine. I know you can't look at the game that way.
And he'd have extra minions on the board. He would have fit in 2
Yes.
more button presses because he wouldn't have made the double 1-drop play on turn 2.
And that, to me, is going to be the question. Is the access to resources worth more? Or was it the board presence? And right now, the Champion's Ball is going to make up some of that board presence he lost. And, you know, extremely importantly so.
Yeah. Well, this is going to work out really well for Ike. I've been just trying to think through both these players' lines in this early game. And I know myself I would have done things differently on both accounts, but I can see the merit in each of them. Ike's is trying to go all in on Divine Favor early game to get his resources.
Stonehill is just, it was like almost perfect in this situation. The fact that it blocks both the dagger and this 3/8 are just such a massive difference in what we were looking at the turn before this. That Stonehill actually might have put Ike at an extremely decisive position. And I think there's a number of cards actually that would have accomplished that same thing, but the Stonehill just, it's such an innocuous card that's playing such a big role right here.
Yeah.
And I could have taken that opportunity to push.
Shellfire next to a Tar Creeper, though, is actually a pretty scary thing.
It is a scary thing, but the problem is he doesn't really have any way to fight for board left outside of just playing minions and hoping that's good enough, and Ike has loaded his hand with big buffs.
Well, Tar Creeper is his way to fight through board.
That's an issue.
Because you effectively have to get through 13 points of taunt to kill the Tar Creeper. Because the Snapjaw Shellfighter is going to eat up at least the first 8 points of damage.
Make that 7.
Make that 7. And then the Tar Creeper will have to eat up another 5.
I get what you're saying, But this is a 6-minion raid leader that's landing.
Also, this is not a control deck. This is Odd Rogue, which wants to be doing the same thing that Odd Paladin's doing. So even once that Shell Fighter absorbs all that damage, who cares? Because he has no development beyond that, outside of a bunch of 5-drops that rely on you having minions on board to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Or in Vile Spine Slayer's case, cheap minions to play with it.
ThunderUP is never getting the board again. I think with that turn on the raid leader with 6 minions that Ike has locked up the game. I would be shocked if ThunderUP won this game. That is exactly where I was going with it. And I could see your head starting to, you know, the cog wheel starting to turn, and you're like, something's happening here, and I don't quite know what yet.
Well, Firefly Vile Spine Slayer onto the raid leader. And then the 8/8 Frostwolf Warlord hits the board, and you're dead.
I think that's the play, though.
Maybe Ike leaves his minions on the board. He can set up a Fungomancer, make some good trades.
Yeah, you know, like maybe a Tsunami comes through, only hits Ike's side of the stage.
Maybe Ike's hand is double Vine Cleaver, Blessed Maul, Baku.
I think that might still win. I mean, the Vine Cleaver just sounds scary enough.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And you know, one of the big factors too is that Ike's got freedom in that decision too. Does he want to push, or does he want to be, as I put it in the Hunter matchup, responsible?
Reporting for
Just keep playing around Fungomancer. Don't let them land it.
No Phantom Knives in the deck. Ike knows that.
And without Cold Blood's able to be in the deck anymore, Myra's is way less scary.
Yep. What Myra will do here is maybe pick up a Tart Creeper, and if not, make ThunderUP die faster.
So ThunderUP wouldn't die immediately unless Ike had damage from hand. So I think that the out for ThunderUP, looking from his perspective, is to Myra's into basically all the damage that's left in the deck. Because after the Myra's, you get to Dagger Up and Deadly Poison. That represents 8 damage. And that means Ike has 13 health left, which would be Leroy,
Double Southsea,
Double Southsea, and wow, am I still having trouble piecing together the damage?
There's nothing else.
Oh gosh, you're right.
Wolf finds Leroy 1 Southsea in SI.
So Dagger Up and Deadly represents 8. The second Deadly makes that 10. You have Southsea Deckhand for 12, Leroy for 18, and then SI7 Agent for 19, 20.
Does he even have enough mana for that?
This guy's
nope.
No Tart Creeper picked up. Takes the defensive line, which
means Ike is going to secure the board with just the Anoia module, slam a Frostwolf Warlord, trade off on the board. Fatigue's going to set in, and ThunderUp's done for.
Reporting for duty.
no outs. Then I'm going to take a long look at this board and think I'm very, very dead.
I give up.
Ike, 3-2 over ThunderUP, and moves on to the winners match in his group. This was a tough-looking set, and it went back and forth. Ike takes first 2, ThunderUP answers back quickly. And I'll tell you what, when you're sitting in that tournament seat and the games are swinging back and forth like that, it feels a lot different than it is just kind of watching it and be like, oh, it's tied up now.
Yeah.
No, both players are extremely nervous in that spot, and typically the player who has lost the second 2 games has a much tougher mentality than the player who has just won 2 games. They're usually feeling pretty confident, but I think the matchup that ThunderUP had there, it just being such a poor one for Odd Rogue, it ends up being a big payoff for Ike and the Odd Paladin.
Yeah, and regardless, if you know you have an inevitable matchup coming up where you're favored, that's still a very tough scenario to be in, and fatigue can settle in. And sometimes you can get in your own head when you're like, okay, this is a favorable matchup, I should win it. And then you start to think, uh-oh, what if he has the perfect draw? What if I lose this matchup that I'm supposed to win? Could I have done something different earlier? But fortunately for Ike, he doesn't have to worry about that because he took his initial match over ThunderUP. And for now, we have Raven standing by with an interview.
All right, congratulations, Ike. Good job on the win. And first things first, thanks for sitting down to not make me look too short, as I wish more people would be this considerate. But initially, let's take a look at that series. How were you feeling going into it? And most importantly, how did you feel the Odd Paladin would perform going into the series?
So going into it, I played like 100 sets against his lineup, so I felt like it was pretty even overall. I thought a lot of it would come down to pick order, which I kind of nailed by getting the Hunter into the even lock, which was the most important. I think the Odd Paladin was fine overall. The even lock's obviously a bad matchup, and then I think the Hunter's pretty even, and then the Odd Paladin's pretty favored. So, I mean, it usually got there in testing.
Yeah, well, I managed to get there in this series as well. I will say, if you just if we go back to the Odd Paladin versus the Hunter matchup, there were moments, especially with those hyenas, that you could have ignored them and just pushed a lot of damage, but you chose to trade into them and sort of play it safe, I'll call it. Why was that? And do you think, in hindsight, that was the right decision?
Yeah, that game really ticked me off because I think I played it pretty poorly. In hindsight, I should have went face more. I had a read that he had no secrets by the Spellstone turn, so I figured he didn't really have a way to win besides pretty much exactly what happened, which was Explosive Trap into Zul'jin. So I felt like playing it safe was, at the time, correct, because I had the gas from the Vine Cleaver, and I had the swing turn with Vine Cleaver Dread Corsair. But, yeah, but after that game was over, like, I was tilted, but it was really important to make sure to try to stay focused because every game's a new game.
Okay, and just finally, you've received a lot of support from your peers and the community in general. What does it feel like, you know, playing on the stage and knowing you've got that many people supporting you? And does it add any more pressure when you play? And are you thinking about that?
So as for support, it means more than you think. Like, having motivation from the community is not only like fuel, but it's also just really nice. It doesn't really make me play differently. I feel like I'm pretty confident in my games and whatnot, but you know, level 2 Ike is pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing level 3 at some point, no doubt. So congratulations again on the win, well deserved. And we'll go back over to TJ and Admirable to finish up the show.
Thanks very much, Raven. And Ike, also a pretty inspiring story of perseverance as well. Ike, unfortunately, has had a condition his whole life that's led to many surgeries on his legs, as well as chronic leg pain that, you know, keeps him bedridden a lot of the time. And he said many times on social media, to us, to his peers, that Hearthstone, you know, kind of keeps him going and makes those moments shorter. So it's kind of cool to see him, despite all that, come up here and put on a great performance, starting off with the win. Love me some Mike.
Yeah, it's been, you know, again, quite inspiring to see him travel the circuit, even despite the pain, and fight through it, and with a clear head on top of that. I can't even imagine what it was like to keep a clear head when I'm just sitting next to TJ, let alone going through anything that, you know, has any real-world considerations.
Yeah, try being me. But taking a look at Group C, Ike's going to go on to face Definition in the winners matchup, and that elimination matchup set up between Tai Meow and ThunderUP. So both those players one loss away from being eliminated from the Winter Championship. But what a match that was. We got to see Odd Paladin for the first time this tournament. Looking forward to seeing much more with Ike moving on to that winners match. It's kind of weird to think that it's refreshing sight to see Odd Paladin after all those Xerix cloning gallery priests we were watching all day long, Admirable.
Yeah, don't tell me more about that deck. I'm sick of it and I don't want to see it anymore. Shut up already, Sottle.
All right, but Ike takes the victory 3-2 over ThunderUP. We're 6 matches in the books, which means just 2 more to go left here for day number 1 at the HCT Winter Championship. We're going to have more action coming up here from the tavern, so don't go anywhere. It's almost more Hearthstone time.